Hi guys, Saul Kirsch here with Double Alpha Academy, and in this video I'd like to show you the unboxing and the initial setup of the new PrimeVibe. I want this video to be out there to make it easier for you to set it up right from the start and start filling those primer tubes without issue. So let's get right into it. PrimeVibe packs in this custom-made box, and once opened you'll find the user manual, which also has important parts that you're going to need for the output hole, different calibers, the large and small primers. The white box here includes the controller unit and the power supply. It's a dual voltage power supply. You just assemble the prongs that you need, which are included. And the fully assembled PrimeVibe, which comes packed with the foam padding to protect it for transport. You should have two primer tubes, one large, one small, already fitted with the magnetic collars, and the PrimeVibe unit itself. And get this out the way. So the PrimeVibe is assembled. It's basically ready to use. All you're going to want to do is select the size of the primer that you plan to use and then assemble the exit hole components correctly so that you can start feeding primers. We're going to set this up for small primers, which are the red components. So you'll start by removing the cover. The cover is held in place with a lock-on bayonet connector, so you hold the base, rotate the cover just a few degrees counterclockwise, and the cover will come up and off. Remember that when you want to assemble it again, this cutout here centers with the exit hole. And then you'll see this corner over here aligns with a little ledge in the plastic. You put that down, you seat it in, and you twist it to lock again. Now we have removed it because we want to address the exit hole, which is here. Now the exit hole does not yet include the parts which need to transfer the primers down into the tube, so I want to discuss that first. Since we're going to be loading small primers, we're going to take out the parts we need. You have two Allen keys, a 2mm and a 2.5. The exit hole plug, we're going to use the red one. The base of the exit hole that fits onto the top of the primer tube, and the small of the two springs. These are the parts we're going to use. We'll set these parts aside. This, in fact, is the conversion kit required for the large primers. So to assemble the exit hole, you need to swivel open the cover, and this cover should be fairly loose. If you want it tighter or looser, you can always open or close the 2.5mm screw on the top here. This will compress the O-ring that's assembled underneath it and make it a little looser or tighter above the exit hole. There's a small set screw here which requires the 2mm Allen key, and before you try to assemble the exit plug, loosen the screw. We ship this with the screw tight so that it doesn't fall out and get lost in transit. So you want to loosen that a few turns. Take the plug and insert it into the exit hole. Push it down firmly until it seats all the way. It'll stop against the plastic ledge, and then you have this in position. Tighten the set screw. The aluminum base fits into the pocket here, and the spring assembles into that base piece and then up into the base of the exit hole. Now what you want to make sure is that the spring is seated all the way into its pocket in the upper aluminum piece and nicely seated into the base aluminum. You don't want to have any gaps above or below the spring because that will create issues for the primer flow. Now the primer tube is held in place with a magnetic collar which interacts with a little steel ring which is assembled in the base. We assemble these magnets already positioned correctly so that the top of this tube should make contact with the bottom of that aluminum piece, but not enough to lift it upwards, and not low so that there's a gap created. You can always check and adjust that using the 2.5mm key. You can open the collar, which will loosen the magnet, and then with the magnet positioned lower down, you can fit the tube in until it makes contact. You can see I'm lifting that little shoe now. I don't want to do that. I just want to make contact. So I'll push down on it, and then I'll allow the magnet to snap into position with the aluminum pipe touching the bottom of this aluminum piece. And in this position, I'll tighten that screw. Now that is how we already adjusted it before we shipped, so you should be good to go. And now we have a nice exit hole fully assembled, and we're basically ready to load small primers. I have my power supply already assembled and unpacked, so I can just take this one here, plug it into the plug on the side of the unit that powers it, and I can check to see that the unit will power up and run. Press the start button. You'll have to press it twice if the unit was dormant. And now you can hear and you can feel the vibration in the bowl. I'll close the cover, turn that off for now, reattach the safety shield, and we always recommend that you have that safety shield in place. Turn it to lock it, and now your unit is ready to run. Let's talk a little bit about adjusting it for the primers themselves. Okay, so now that I have my output assembly for the small primers, I've got 100 or so Fiocchi small pistol primers. I'm just going to throw them on there. I can help them into the hole a little bit, speed things up. And I can activate the unit by pressing the red button. Now, to adjust the way the primers are moving in the bowl, I can change the frequency with either a very fine tune, or I can push the button in and get a much faster change to the frequency and the performance of the primers. What I'm looking to achieve is a smooth feed of the primers. I don't want them bouncing or moving too quickly. I don't need the primer tube to fill in 30 seconds. What I want is reliability on the exit hole, and I want the primers to keep moving smoothly from the first to the last. So for this particular setup, I can see my frequency about 92. Seems to be running quite nicely. You can see the primers are moving, falling down the tube, feeding into the primer tube, and the ejection windows are functioning and ejecting all the primers which are reversed. The arm is sweeping off the primers which are on their side, so that everything that finds its way to the exit hole is correctly orientated and is feeding down the way we want it to do. If you have this set up correctly, typically you'll fill the primer tube within about 2 minutes. Large primers may take slightly longer, but the performance should eventually get to a result where you feed through all of the primers within 2 to 2.5 to 3 minutes. The countdown clock is adjustable as well. You can turn that up to 4 minutes. You can also set it if you prefer, and I can show you that here. If you turn that off, you can control the delay time up to 4 minutes, down to 30 seconds. Or if you hold in the adjustment knob for 4 or 5 seconds, you get into a continuous mode where now the unit will keep running for up to 3 hours. And we developed that to enable people who want to try and assemble the unit directly to a reloading press, play around with direct feed, and they might want to keep the unit running longer than just the time it takes to feed 100 primers. Remember that this device is designed for 100 primers. If you fill the bowl with more than 100 primers, your primer tube will overflow, and that may not have the result that you're looking for. We can leave that running until the last of the primers will feed down into the exit hole. It's normal that the last primers take longer than the first ones do, because without a whole row of primers pushing them along their way, they do tend to slow down a bit. But you can see that now we're already down to the last few primers in the bowl, and those last few primers will feed out over the next couple of seconds. And that was the last one, and the bowl is fed through, the primer tube is filled. Now, I'd like to show you how to change the calibers and convert to large primers. So we've completed filling our tube with small primers. They're all in there and orientated correctly. And we now want to convert the machine over to large primers. I hold the stem, rotate the cover till it unlocks, and I can remove it, open up the cover over the exit hole. And what I want to do is remove the conversion kit parts for the small primers. Those are the red parts. I'll open that screw there. And I can use the spring itself to push up and lift the upper plug. But if you do this, be careful, because you don't want to bend the spring. You don't want to damage it. You must keep the spring straight and undamaged. If it gets a kink in the spring, you may not be able to use it, and you may need to replace the spring. So these are the 3 parts of the small primers. I can then grab my conversion kit parts, the blue plug. I'm going to seat that into place all the way in. Again, the lower aluminum adapter and the large primer tubes. Make sure they're seated, the spring is seated all the way into the upper and bottom compartment. And then I take my blue primer tube, which is for the large primers. Again, that's already been adjusted for the magnet to be in the right position. And we're done. We've concluded the conversion kit, and we can now use this unit to feed some large primers. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, I've completed my conversion changeover into large primers. I've got 100 large primers here, and I help those into the bowl, and I can immediately activate it, running at the same frequency I had adjusted before for the small Fiocchi primers. It might be that I need to fine-tune the adjustment to get a good motion out of the large primers. Large primers do typically feed a little bit slower than the small primers do, but still you can find the frequency that'll give you good motion in the primers without bouncing them around too much, and achieve a very reliable orientation and filling of the large primer tube. So this took only just a few seconds to convert from small to large primers, and this primer fill is now running and filling the tube with the large Marome pistol primers. So this is how you set up and run your PrimeVibe, which is available now and shipping from doublealpha.biz.